So good morning, good evening, Kusu Sanpo, Madame Gabi, Namaste, Bonjour, Sawadee Konnichiwa, to all the brilliant people, teachers, and students who are participating in our webinar from various corners of the world. So many people are joining from different time zones. It's really exciting. So let me start by introducing Reimagining Society. Reimagining Society is an international peace and well-being oriented organization focused on creating more inclusive, fair, and sustainable communities by holistically embedding the concept of well-being in all levels of ecosystem. Reimagining Society believes that if well-being is being taken care of globally, peace and harmony will follow. On that note, we aim to establish economic empowerment through social connectivity among the youth, as we believe that synergy of innovation and dynamism, partnership and human development fosters a unique change. As for myself, my name is Cirillo, and I joined Reimagining Society as a global well-being envoy from Japan. I'm currently in Japan, currently in New York, since this October, and I am already truly impressed by its global dynamic, by this global dynamic community consisting of great, amazing board members, team, my fellow global well-being envoys and ambassadors, and all of the people and organizations who support Reimagining Society that keeps bringing new initiatives, ideas, movements, which makes our world healthier, more comfortable place to live in, and peaceful towards achieving global well-being. I'm really grateful to be part of Reimagining Society, and I hope you all now have a better sense of our vision and mission through our engagements. I will now hand over the stage to Mr. Sudesh, co-founder and executive administrative director of Reimagining Society, to introduce our esteemed speaker, Ms. Rosaria Louwman. But before that, let me talk about two important things that I want you guys to keep in mind. First, all the participants who are attending this webinar are required to mark your attendance in the attendance form within the chat section in the beginning of the webinar, which is pretty much now, and at the end of the webinar as well. So please note that only people who mark their attendance will be provided with e-certificate and free copies of distinguished Kindle books from this speaker, which is great. And also another thing, so we're going to be taking questions after the speech, and then there's going to be time for people in the audience to ask questions online. But I want you guys to put your questions on the chat box on the Zoom so that we can choose the questions. And because of the time limit, we kind of have to, if there's a lot of questions, we have to pick questions. But we'll make sure that all the questions will be addressed even after the speech. So Sudesh, are you ready for introducing Ms. Rosaria?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chisato. Am I audible to everyone? Yeah. Thank you so much, Chisato, for such a comprehensive introduction to Reimagining Society. Well, first of all, I would like to welcome every one of us to the first webinar on the series of Transforming the Development Landscape on the topic Happiness-Driven Growth by Reimagining Society in collaboration with Wow Now. The session is being co-moderated by me, Sudesh Pokhrel, and Chisato Carillo, our dynamic global well-being envoy from Japan, in interaction with our esteemed speaker, Rosaria, Cirillo. The session will follow the sequence of presentation from the speaker, question and answer session from the Reimagining Society team, question and answer session from the registered applicants, and also from the live feed. So, first of all, please let me have the honor of introducing Rosaria Cirillo. I met Rosaria in the Happiness Conference in Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. She was one of the speakers in the conference, and ever since I have met Rosaria, I've been a big follower of her. Also, I've been a big follower of her work. I look upon her as my mentor, as my inspiration, and as a person, I have so much respect for her. On top of that, she is also a TEDx speaker, CX advisor, certified happiness trainer, certified customer experience professional, and many more. Rosaria's mission is to bring more happiness and connection into the world. After more than 12 plus years in various roles across sales, customer service, business improvement, e-commerce, and customer experience for leading companies like Forrester, Adobe, and Philips in 2013. She also founded Wow Now. She founded Wow Now to inspire and help companies to choose, design, and deliver wow life-enriching experiences that contribute to everyone's happiness. Rosaria is the author of Yellow Goldfish, a book covering 9 ways of increasing happiness in business, which can also drive growth, productivity, and prosperity, and a series of artistic and inspirational books such as My Circle of Connection and Words of Wisdom Nurturing Our World. Originally Italian, she lives in the Netherlands with her husband and two beautiful boys. Uh, During this webinar, through her kind and habitual generosity, I would say, she will be providing all the attending participants with the Kindle copy of her two books, which is Words of Wisdom, and the new version of Yellow Goldfish, which is called The Yellow Factor. We will also provide the participants with an e-certificate signed by the speaker and the co-founders themselves. So, in a brief, introducing myself, my name is Sudesh Pokhrel. I'm from the Kingdom of Bhutan. I am a Young Global Changer 2020 from a Global Solutions Initiative World Policy Forum that is from Berlin, Germany. And I'm also the co-founder of Reimagining Society. Now I leave the stage to Rosaria, and I hope all the people attending this webinar will have a great learning experience today. At the same time, I would like to remind all the participants who are interacting in this webinar that if you have any sort of questions, please do feel free and put it in the chat box so that the questions can be attended. Now I leave the stage to Rosaria. Rosaria, you're welcome to take advantage of the stage and go on with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Sudesh. Really, thank you for the heartfelt introduction that you gave me. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here because for me, Reimagining Society and what you guys are doing, it's really at the core of reimagining our world and driving that change that I'm also so much passionate about, and which I called happiness-driven growth. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to share my vision with so many of you from so many different countries. So let me start by asking all of you to take a moment to think about what is your definition of happiness. Take a moment for yourself and think, how do you define happiness? For me, my definition of happiness stems from the one from Gandhi. So Gandhi says that happiness is when what we think, what we say, and what we do are in harmony. And I built upon this definition to also include what we feel and what we experience. Why? Let me share with you this story. This is my son, now already 5 years ago. In this picture, we were on our first family cruise, and he's holding in his hands his first camera. For him, a week of joy and experience and discovery, feeling a lot of autonomy, going around with that camera, catching new views of new world across different countries he had never been on. For me, look at those rails behind him. Like, not only he completely fit through it, I even fit those rails. And here we are on the 13th point of the boat. So for me, it was a week of panic, anxiety, and terror, and really never to lose sight of my kids, because if I would, God knows what could happen. And I tell you, on the very last day when we were ready to disembark, we actually lost sight of my youngest child, and they were the worst 45 minutes of my life. And most of all, it was also like a week of feeling betrayed, because at the very moment of booking this cruise and having saved a lot of money to go to this cruise, I specifically asked the person I booked the cruise from, did you replace those rails? Because I remember those rails from when I had been on my honeymoon also on a cruise, and I already found them terrifying. But I was an adult then. I'm like, if you now are branding your new product for families and for children, did you change them? And clearly they didn't, even though I was told that they were. So for me, it was really about feeling betrayed. And while I truly believe that we are in charge of our own happiness and the happiness comes from inside, I also believe that everything we do and the interaction that we have with companies ultimately impact that happiness. And that is why I believe that companies have also the responsibility and the possibility to impact that happiness. And that is why my quote, my definition of happiness became also what you think, what you say, what you do, what you feel, and what you experience. Because all of those elements, they need to be in harmony. And that is also why I started to think of the model of happiness-driven growth. What is the change that I want to see the companies driving? And if I share a bit more about my journey to that, it's like I'm originally Italian. I know many of you recognize this one. This is the Vesuvio in Naples, near Caserta. And my original city, it's actually Caserta, which is only 20 minutes away from Naples, but very few people in the world actually know Caserta, because in a way also our city failed to really maximize our resources and to make sure that all the people really knew and valorized what we had. But it's absolutely amazing. And also it was a concept when I was growing up that life was about sacrifice and not so much about happiness. So I embarked myself on a journey to really understand happiness also through the eyes of the economics. And that's when I moved to Rome to study business economics. And then from Rome in 2002, I moved to the Netherlands for an internship at Forrester Research, which was my start into the world of corporate and the world of customer experience. Because at that time, in 2002, the concept of customer experience was first being expressed, and I wrote my master thesis on it. And from that moment, as Sudesh also already described, I've been living in the Netherlands with my family, my husband and 2 boys, and I've been working for a number of companies, first for Forrester, then for the contact center of Adobe, then for Philips. And across all of those companies, I was always looking at the entire customer experience and what impacts customer happiness across that entire journey. And I really built up my vision, believing that companies can leverage happiness to increase their sales and ultimately profitability, but happiness can be the core, which is a win-win for everybody. And that's why now 7 years ago, I started One Now with this mission to bring more happiness into the world. And as I acquired more and more certification also on customer experience, I started to really see that customer centricity and customer-driven growth were not quite enough. Something was missing, because sometimes when we put only the customer at the center, it's still it's not a system thinking type of vision. It's still just a very partial vision. And in some cases, putting the customer at the center also meant that certain methodology and certain vision kept saying, in order to maximize memorability, we actually need to leave certain pain into the experience, because pain maximizes the memorability. And I was like, this cannot be. It cannot just be about maximizing the memorability. It has to be about maximizing happiness. And for me, the key core was then about the question that I started posing myself was, in which world would I rather live in? One of happiness or one of pain? And I knew the answer to this question because there had been a very peculiar moment in my life, a very personal moment, which I'll share with you right now. And it's this one. Exactly 10 years ago, at the end of July, we got to hear that my father actually had stage 4 cancer. I was living in the Netherlands that time, and that was the time where I was pregnant of my first son. It was also the moment where I just heard it was a boy. So it was the end of July. I was in the Netherlands. My father is sick, and they say to us, he might have only 3 months. What do? I speak with my company at that time, Philips, and luckily Philips had so-called parental leave, which allows you to take also unpaid leave if you need to take care of your parents, or your parents are in a terminal state. So I left the Netherlands, I went to Italy. This photo is specifically on the 14th of August. I went there with the dream of doing a lot of works with my father and spending as much time as I could with him. And this is just outside our house. Unfortunately, this was the last day already that he could walk. As of the following day, he started to feel much worse. So he was in bed. High stress for me as well. I started to have all sorts of complications with my pregnancy. I was only able to stay 1 more month. And 2 days after my father's 63 years birthday, I had to fly back to the Netherlands without knowing if I would ever see my father again. So what kept us connecting throughout the entire time was actually internet and Skype. We were Skyping from like the moment I would wake up in the morning to the moment I would go to bed in the evening. We were connecting day in, day out through Skype. Skype really kept us alive and connected. And eventually, I keep believing that it also added days to his life, because eventually, despite any medical prediction, my father managed to live until I could fly back to Italy, and I could introduce him to my son. So this is January. And the moment we introduced him, my son, and we actually even baptized him while connected via Skype to my parents-in-law, which are in the Netherlands, we flew back to the Netherlands. And actually, my father passed away 2 days later. So we flew back to Italy for the funeral. We stayed a few days with my mom and with my family and with my friends, and we flew back to the Netherlands. And the moment that we flew back to the Netherlands, having been pretty much a month in and out of the house between having a C-section to deliver my baby, going to see my father, coming back, going back to Italy for the funeral, in all of this life madness, we had missed out on paying one single bill for the telephone, which nowadays it's telephone, internet, and also television. So we go back into the house and we have nothing. We have no internet and we have no telephone. Like there is no way for me to get in touch with my mom unless, and this is 10 years ago, paying also the high tariff of international calling from the mobile. But for me, the point was, if this had happened a month ago or 2 months ago, when my father, like when internet was like that, it was just like the oxygen for him. And for me, it was our connector. It would have had such an impact on our lives. And that was for me really the trigger to say, it's not possible. We cannot just think of processes and are the customers paying or not paying the bill. We need to think of people as human beings and really realizing the type of impact that we have. So it really made me think, do Skype or nowadays Zoom or all the companies really realize the impact that they have and how much difference they can make in our life? And that really made me formulate more and more my dream. And I say my dream is to live in a world which is human-centered and happiness contributing. So I talk now not so much anymore about customer experience, but really about HCX. Human-centered, because I believe that business models should see companies, employees, customers, all like human beings with a common shared goal: a peaceful, sustainable, healthy, and happy life. And human-centered and happiness contributing, because companies can design and deliver products, services, and experience which are meaningful and life-enriching for people, and they need to enable and empower their employees to make a difference in people's life. So I started to think, and you know, and if you look at also at the business evolution, you see that there have been a lot of different approaches, starting with the first version of business, which is what we call version 1.0, which is the one which put the shareholders at the center and therefore profit at the center. And then came the version 2.0, which puts the customers at the center. And then we had the version which says, no, we have to focus on the employees and everything falls through. And then we had purpose. No, it should be all about the purpose. And I'm like, this is like, it's what Tal Ben-Shahar calls the tyranny of or. It doesn't need to be the shareholders or the customers or the employees or purposes or happiness. We can embrace the power of and. So I always say this is for me like the millennial discussions about whether it's the earth or the sun at the center. The sun is at the center. Happiness is our sun, and everything else can rotate around happiness with purpose, and we can make the employees, the customers happy and have profits for shareholders. And that's what I call human-centered and happiness contributing. Ultimately, happiness is been always the meaning of the purpose of life and our entire aim of the human existence, like Aristotle already concluded more than 2000 years ago. And happiness matters and makes sense for companies. Why? Because in terms of happy customers, those are the most profitable because of five different behavior that the customers show. They advocate and praise you, they provide valuable feedback, they forgive you more, they buy more, and they renew. So they stay with you, and that makes them profitable for a company. On the other side of the question, we have the employees. Happy employees, they have the highest return on investment and actually the lower cost. Why? Because of 5 behaviors that they have. They are more productive, creative, innovative. They actually buy the company's product and services, and they advocate them. They have lower sickness and absenteeism rate. They stay with your company, so you have lower cost of recruiting new people. They also provide you valuable feedback for improvement, and ultimately deliver the best service to your customers. And the numbers, so and this one, happy customer plus employees, ultimately are what provides sustainable, healthy growth for the organizations. And the numbers confirm that. We see from all possible type of reports and insights that companies which have happy customers and happy employees are more profitable. So I start wondering, how can I voice this? What are the examples? What are the companies which have happy customers and happy employees doing that it's so special? And that was in 2017 when I started to think I need to collect all the possible examples in a structural way. I already knew Stan Phelps, the co-author of my book, is the creator of a series called The Goldfish, and I will explain to you in a moment why Goldfish. At the moment that I set up myself to collect example on happiness, he was writing Pink Goldfish, which is about how what makes us weird also makes us strong. And he was asking all of his network for examples. And the moment that he reached out for me asking for those examples, I thought, Stan, actually, have you also considered happiness as one of the colors of your book and collection? I want to do this. Would you like to do yellow goldfish together? And his reaction was an immediate yes, absolutely, because from all the analysis that he had also been seeing and all the development across all the different colors, he had seen that happiness was an underlying theme throughout all the books. So what we did, we started a crowdsourcing project on Listly. If you go there, you can still find it. We start collecting all the possible examples, and we collected over 300 examples of ways that companies were contributing to happiness for customers, employees, and society. And we collected the results and analyzed it in the book Yellow Goldfish, which, as Sudesh has also anticipated, it's now also available to you for free in a new brand, in a way which is Yellow Factor, with focus on happiness in business and some additional element. So let me bring you quickly through some of the key elements of our book and of the insights that we find. First, why a goldfish? So there are a number of reasons why a goldfish. One peculiar one started when also Stan was collecting the example for purple goldfish, and is this example at the hotel of Kimpton, where if you are staying at the hotel by yourself, they actually offer to have a goldfish with you in the room to keep you company. Also kind of a way of connecting, and they call this program the Guppy Love. So that was one of key example. But the key reason behind the goldfish is this one. And I know Sudesh really likes this example. So it's about the difference between the growth of the goldfish. Did you know about the huge difference between the average goldfish size and the world Guinness goldfish? Can you try and take a guess about what is the size of those two fishes? An average goldfish, it's about 7 to 10 centimeters long. The world record, it's actually 50 centimeters. That is like 5 times bigger, which means if you compare it with buildings, it would be as if you walk through the street and you meet somebody which is as tall as 20 meters, so as tall as a building of 5 floors. So that's the huge difference. And what are the elements? Also here, can you take a few seconds to think what could possibly be the factors that impact the growth of the goldfish and that make such a difference for the goldfish? So there are 5 factors which impact the growth of the goldfish. And those factors are also the same factors that apply to the growth of the business. So the first one is the size of the bowl. How big is the bowl in which the goldfish is growing? Which in economy terms, it's the size of the market. The next one is the quantity of fish in the bowl, which in business terms, it's the size of the competition. The third element, it's the quality of the water, which in business terms, it's equal to the economy. The fourth, it's actually the first 120 days. They are extremely important for the growth of what is called fry in this phase. And those are the equivalent of a startup phase in business terms. And finally, the last one. Can you guess which one is the last one? The last one is about the genetic makeup. It's really about what differentiates you. In terms of business, is how do you decide to differentiate yourself? And that is what we call the special factor that you have. So if you look at those 5 elements, as a corporate, as a business, which one do you really have control over at any time? The one you have control over at any time is differentiation. And we believe that happiness can be a great differentiation opportunity and should be a driving factor in business because it's a win-win for everybody. So why? And that's also what we call the yellow factor. And why yellow? The reason for yellow starts from, well, surely yellow is the color of happiness. But why is yellow the color of happiness? One of the key reasons why yellow is the color of most associated with happiness is because we associated it with the sun, with the light of the sun, and the sun gives us warmth, which also makes us feel like we can thrive. But interestingly enough, the sun is actually not yellow, it's white. We perceive it as yellow because of the atmospheric wave. Yet the sun is one of the best metaphor for happiness. And I especially love the metaphor from Tal Ben-Shahar when it comes to the sun and the comparison with happiness. And he says the following, that the sun is exactly like happiness. We cannot look straight into the sun, otherwise we would get blinded. In the same way, we cannot and we should not pursue happiness as such, because otherwise we will just feel like miserable, because we will all go like, why am I not happy? Why am I not happy? I want to be more happy. And that doesn't work. But what we should do, instead of pursuing happiness directly, we should pursue happiness indirectly. Just like we get all the benefits of the sun by getting his light and his warmth, but not by staring at it directly. So how can we pursue happiness indirectly? This is exactly what the core of our book, Yellow Goldfish and Yellow Factor, is. What does influence our happiness? So I'm going to ask you here to take a moment to close your eyes and for a moment connect with yourself. So deep breathe in and breathe out, and think of a time in which you had a remarkable and meaningful interaction with a company, with an institution, one that made you say, wow, that made you walk out of that interaction enriched and happier. What exactly made you say, wow? How did you feel? Where are you? What can you see? What can you smell? Is there anything that you can touch? Are there any sounds? How do you feel even now remembering that experience? And what did you do as a follow-up to that experience? How did it make you feel in the rest of your day? Did it give you a cheer up that then you brought in the rest of your day, and that had a ripple effect on everything else that you did in that day? What were the key elements of this experience? From what we see, experiences ultimately boil down to three big elements. One is the involvement of the 5 senses, because that's how we experience the world. We experience the world throughout all of the 5 senses. And other elements, it's how everything that we perceive and that happens to us stimulates our chemical reaction in our body, and therefore the production of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin, giving what we call the dose of happiness. And we cover this in detail in the book. And the third element, which we're going to focus on today, it's about the emotions. What type of emotions do the experience that we have trigger in us, and how those emotions relates to our needs? The most basic human emotion we all feel, put it in the most simplified way that you can imagine, are those. It boils down to 5 key emotions: happiness, love, sadness, fear, and anger. Where I say anger is very often an escalated emotion. When our sadness and our fear are not taken care of, they become anger. And we are so used to call them positive or negative emotion. And if you take one thing from me today, may also make sure that it's this one. There are no positive or negative emotion. All the emotions have a role. At maximum, we can consider them pleasant versus unpleasant. But the best way possible for our growth and for business growth and for everyone growth to look at the emotion is as emotion we feel when our needs are met, and emotion we feel when our needs are not met. Because if we see them in that way, then emotions can really have the purpose which they have, which is to set us in motion to go and find out what is the need that is not being fulfilled in this moment that I need to take care of, or which need is being fulfilled right now that makes me so happy, and how can I make sure that I keep fulfilling this need all the time so that I keep staying happy. That's why then in Yellow Goldfish, we looked at also what are then those universal human needs, and putting together the findings from Maslow hierarchy of needs and the framework specifically from Marshall Rosenberg and his nonviolent communication. We look at all the different universal human needs, and then we found the right word for each of them that would also fit with the happiness model. And so those became the 9 types of yellow goldfish, or what we call the flower of happiness. The first human need is health, the H of happiness. And then you have A for autonomy, P for purpose, the second P for play, I for integrity, N for nature, E for empathy, S for simplicity, and smile. And for each of those elements, we elaborated then further in the book what are the needs that are fulfilled and what can companies do to fulfill those needs for the customers, for the employees, and for society overall. And we share example of all of those elements. So what you find that in the book, we have at least 50 different company cases of what we call yellow factor trailblazers. And in the overall list, we have 300. And those are big companies. You have companies in there also like Unilever or Google, which even though they might not be fully happiness-driven growth companies, but they are doing what we call little extra, which contribute to happiness. And then you have company like Berryware Miller, which is also one of my favorite, or Tonnes Chocoloni, which I'll share with you more in a moment, which are really truly embracing also happiness leadership. So there is really a mix, but the key message here is there are all sorts of different gradients in which you can have a yellow factor and contribute to happiness. So what are some of those examples? And given the time, I want to give you at least a pin, I call it, of happiness. So I focus on 3 main categories: play, integrity, and nature, to give you a teaser of the type of examples that we collected. So the first one, play. Play, it's an entire word. It's all about creativity. It's also about gamification. It's about really getting engaged, but you can do it also at very simple level. So one example I want to share with you is from Peppercom. Peppercom is a company in US which introduced improvisation comedy training as part of their onboarding process. It started by sending some of their managers to do this training. Then they saw the benefit, and then it became just a standard practice into their organization. So now all of their new employees and even all of their clients, they all are invited regularly for comedy training. Another example on the customer side comes from the Four Seasons Hotel, and it's this one I selected for the simplicity of it and to show you how it doesn't even require any money or an investment, but in this case, the autonomy and the creativity of the employees. So in this case, the story is told by Mika, which was at this hotel, and the moment that he checked in, he got the usual question that you almost always get by the concierge: is there anything else I can help you with? And Mika, with a bit of a playful tone, went on and replied, yeah, actually, yes, I always wanted a pony. Now, you know, how do you answer to such a question? You can just, disregard and say, haha, nice joke. Or you can actually take it with a hint of play and humor and do something with it. So the concierge replied, I'll work on that right away. And a little over half an hour later, Mika heard the sounds of some paper under his door. And basically all the concierge had done, she had found and printed for him a list of available ponies for rides or even for purchase in the radius of 25 kilometers that he could have rented or bought for the day. And then he added, let me know, what would you like me to book for you, assuming that your credit card can hold the damage. You know, it's just a simple element, but it brightens up the day for the customers and for the employee, which can in that way bring some fun into their otherwise routinely job. Then the next one, it's about integrity. And this one for me, it's really, really a core. I don't know how many of you know this company. It's Tony's Chocoloni. They're actually a Dutch company that's been growing amazingly over the past few years. And they've now expanded in Europe and since now 2 years also in US. They started as because the founder, Tony, was actually a journalist, which went in Africa and found out how much there was still slavery in today's cocoa industry. He heated up 12 bars of chocolates, went to the police and said, arrest me because I've been eating illegally made chocolate. And what do you think he got as a reply? A just big laugh, because it's not illegal to eat illegally produced chocolate. And that for him was the trigger to say, this cannot be. We need to reimagine society. We need to reimagine the way that this is done. So he started the company Tony Chocoloni with the intent of producing 100% slave-free chocolate. So they have built an entire world around it. I really like, you'll find the example in the book, but I invite you to look them up further. They built an entire system around it to really show and then get as many other company producers of chocolate as possible to do farming in a way that it's really slave-free. They take care of the education of the children of the farmers. They do really an amazing amount of things. But they also are investing their yellow factors across every single thing that they do. You see here a bar of chocolate. It's the only bar of chocolate possibly in the world where it's not just all equal square, but they are all different size to symbolize the disequality which is in the world. And actually it also represents the part of Africa where chocolate is produced. But then they go more. They have every single once a month, the last Friday of every month, they have Tony's Talk in order to increase awareness about how the chocolate is being produced for their employees and for anyone who wants to join. If you go in the toilet into their office, you actually enter a choco forest. So here you have also a bit the element of nature. They have, I mean, now in times of Corona, they have to give, this is in Dutch, but it's basically tips on how to avoid getting sick. They do that with a humor, and again, with playfulness in it. They do a bingo where the employees change desk regularly so that they get better to know each other. They celebrate their employees when they are a certain amount of years with the company, and even after they leave, they say, you are still a Tony for life. Or this one, if you have a child, they will send you a baby suit with written Tiny Tony, and they give you special gift for the child. And most of all, now, when the COVID started, and in March we had all the quarantena, they made the great big Quarantoni survival kit, in which they made sure there were all the possible things that people could use as they had to work from home, you know. And again, some with humor, like the Corona or the good toilet roll. Some other useful, like the soap for the hands or the chocolate. So a lot of little hints that keep the playfulness, but keep the happiness rising for the employees, while being really strong on integrity. And they are even now building actually a chocolate factory, where there actually will be even a roller coaster where you can see how chocolate can be produced. So they're really doing an amazing amount of things covering all of those elements. And finally, for nature, yeah, a simple one, like nature, it's about both, represents for us both beauty and nature and the harmony of nature, but it also represents the actual contact with nature and really being outside. So the example we picked here, it's from Albert Heijn. Albert Heijn is a massive supermarket chain in the Netherlands. And while supermarkets also have the power to contribute a lot by, for example, reducing the amount of plastic around their vegetables or choosing the type of products that they sell, in this case, the example we picked, it's a special loyalty campaign, which they have now once a year for at least 8 years already, where in the month of March, April, they gave those little boxes that you see here, which is called Moestuintje, like a little garden. And basically in this little box, there is a paper pot, a bit of ground and seeds. And the idea is that you go with your kids and plant first the pot in the paper, and then once it's growing, you plant it, you put it in a bigger pot. And you can see that those are photos from 2018 while I was writing the book. I did that with the seeds of sunflowers, and it was just a very fun, engaging activity to do with the kids. So it contributed to our happiness because it made us be outside. And then it contributed to our happiness when we saw the sunflowers growing and blossoming. And eventually it contributed to the happiness of whoever was walking by and seeing those sunflowers. So those are all the elements that companies can do in order to contribute to happiness. And another one here, it's about how you can really create ways to experience nature. This is farm camps, which really allows you to have tent on a farm, so you actually see how the farmers do everything in their work. But again, for the kids, they have created something called the farmer passport, where the kids get a stamp for everything that they do, so that it creates more happiness also there and helps them experience more of nature. And in the interest of time, I'm like, okay, super quickly, I'll give you also the E, and then I want to bring you to the how, so that we can take some questions. This one, it's about empathy. And in this case, what was special about this one, this was KPN. It's a major telco industry in the Netherlands. What they discovered was that most people were canceling at the moment that somebody died in their family, that canceled their subscription or the family parents. And those people were being treated just like everybody else. They understood that was not working. You cannot ask somebody who just lost a dear, why do you really want to cancel? Can we not offer you something to stay? So they created a dedicated service desk where people are especially trained to support people in an empathic way. And the extra that they did is that they offer people the opportunity to receive the voicemail message of the deceased. So in some cases, that voicemail, it's the last thing that it's the only recorded audio that they have of the people that is deceased. So people have been really, really appreciating it. It's again a little thing. It doesn't cost anything to the company, but ultimately contributes to the happiness of the people. And the last bit for me, so it's like, how can you go about then creating this yellow factor? We have identified 6 different steps, which are similar to the growth of a sunflower. So it's about from grounding the seeds in the ground to reaching up to operationalizing it by making it a standard in your company, to the actual blossoming, and then taking time and finally harvesting. And the one examples I want to share with you to bring this into reality for you, into vision, is this one. This is an MRI scan machine from General Electric, which allows you to scan whenever, for example, you have a cancer, or like, so a situation which is highly, or high meaningfulness for your life. And a few years ago, Dow Dietz, which was responsible for the design of this machine at GE, had just made a brand new machine, and he decided to take time, the T of growth, to actually go out of the office and go to the hospital to see in practice this machine, and the amazing happy reaction of the first customers or patients that would go in the machine. So he went there, and those were machines for children, actually. And then he saw this little kid working with her parents, but actually she was crying. And the more she approached the machine, the more she kept crying, and the more she said, I do not want to go in there. And that was for the opening eyes moment for Dow Dietz, where he realized, oh my God, I thought I made the most incredible technology machine, but actually to the eyes of the patients, this kid is just a brick with a hole in it, he says. So what did he do? He decided to reach up, to reimagine the world and this experience. And he started thinking, okay, I need to do it in a different way. How can I do it? So he went for a design thinking studies at Stanford School University. He learned everything that there was to learn about design thinking. And then he went back to the drawing board and completely reimagined and redesigned the experience. And he created this, what it's called the experience for children. Basically, each and every machine, each and every room had a different theme, from Spiral Island to the Magic Island to Fantasy, all super rooms with a theme, in which even walking to the room was having sprays of water, all sorts of things aligned with that experience. And then he went back there, taking the time to see the reactions. And this time, he finally see the excitement of the children actually go into the machine. And what was most remarkable for him is that actually when the children came out, they actually turned towards their parents and said, Mom, Dad, can we do this again tomorrow? So he had completely reimagined and transformed the experience from a scary, fearful one to actually a happy, meaningful, contributing experience. And in doing so, he had also, it didn't cost more, but actually he also obtained a lot of results. First, happy kids and their family. Second, 80% of the kids no longer required sedation, which was the case before, to keep them quiet. And because they no longer require sedation, it meant also less stress for the employees and the medical staff. It meant also less expensive procedure and less anesthesiologist time needed, therefore lower cost and more scan possible for the hospital, and ultimately more scans per day, so that more life could be saved, because if there was an issue, it would be discovered early on. So this is, for me, the key example that I want to leave you with. And that is fully representative of happiness-driven growth and of happiness contributed a human-centered experience. And now I'd be happy to take a few calls.
Thank you, Rosaria. That was truly amazing. And even the last bit where the testing center was truly transformed, it could encourage a lot of people to do that in the third world as well. Because, I think those kind of creativity definitely makes the kids forget and then adds to their happiness as well. And the fact that, I actually read your book, Yellow Goldfish, and I really like the part where you compare the goldfish with its surrounding to like the real life scenarios in the outside world, such as the market, the competition, the economy, the product lunch, and various things. It's really, even your book itself is full of happiness. So I think learning from you, it's a great experience for everyone who is involved in this webinar as well. The most important thing that I learned from your book is the genetic makeup, because somewhere down the line, I also remember that in your book that you mentioned that since we do not have control over the market, anything can happen anytime. So the genetic makeup of your startup should be unique and it should be happiness oriented. And this also goes to, this also would be a recommendation to many of the people who are starting their own startups. I think it is something that all the people who are having new social startups, they should keep this thing in mind. Rather, it should be taken as a constitution or a Bible for startup. Then the whole world would change and look into startups quite differently. And thank you, Rosaria. That was amazing presentation from your end. So now to move on with the webinar, we will move forward with the question and answer session. These are the questions that were curiously designed by the help of the Reimagining Society team itself, followed by the questions from the registrants. So the question number one is that the majority of ideas you discuss stresses on how industries do not give services, considering the fact that it should be people-centric happiness that should matter. But the consideration is only in terms of quantity and in terms of profit. However, in a world where there is an explosion of population and limited resources, population is quickly consuming these limited resources, what are the ways through which we can bring happiness that is quality and adequate quantity as well? How do we bring this factor in each and every individual's life? Is it feasible given the challenges the world already presents to us?
It's an amazing and a very, very big question to reflect on. Actually, I'm going to challenge it with a very simple question, with a simple answer, which is, at the end, I think it's just about changing the mindset. That's the key. Because a lot of the examples, they actually don't require more resources. And therefore we say, oh, we don't have resources to do this. It's just about a different usage of the resources that we have. And because actually using those resources in this different way is even more sustainable, ultimately it creates more resources. And there are two faults for this one. One is one element I'm now also thinking even more than the goldfish is the sunflower, because the sunflower has all except, and that's in the new version of the yellow factor. The sunflower has all the elements of the goldfish when it comes to growth, but additionally it produces seeds. So whenever a sunflower grows, everybody can enjoy that beauty, and even when the sunflower is over, it gives us seeds, and those seeds can be used again for new sunflowers, can be eaten by birds, or can be eaten by us as humans for like all sorts of things, and they're extremely nutritious. And that's, for me, it really represents happiness, because it's if we would really change our mindset, not only we would spend less money, but we would create more value, and a value that automatically regenerates itself and then creates more resources. And I think one critical example also of the less costs that you find also in the book is the example of the incubator for Nepal. So at some point, a group of students were asked to go in Nepal and build new, cheaper incubators so that there could be more incubators in the hospital, so that more children could be saved. And actually, only when they went in Nepal and started talking to people, they realized that it wasn't a matter that the incubators were not enough and they needed to be built more cheaper incubator. The actual real problem was that people were living so far in different parts of Nepal that they could actually not even reach the hospital with the incubators. And at the end, they just created a small, like a sort of sleeping bag, which could be kept warm with water, hot water. Super simple, absolutely less expensive than building an incubator, but actually really saving life. And that's the change in the mindset of being human-centered and happiness contributing. Focusing on the real problem and not just on the solution, which often is a solution to the wrong problem.
Oh, thank you, Rosaria. I think, this also makes us realize one thing that, even if you have cheaper methods, and if you are innovative on creating, discovering solutions and making innovations on cheaper resources, and if you are really creative on doing so, I think we definitely have a way out. So the second question has to do with the meanings of happiness. So happiness has different meanings for different individual groups and societies. How can we adopt your 9-pillar approach? The 9-pillar approach being health, being autonomy, being purpose, being play, being integrity, nature, simplicity, sympathy, and smile in different spatial environments. For an example, in different groups and different regions and different countries.
So this one is also one where I would love to hear the feedback even from the participants. How much do participants feel that this applies? Because for me, what's amazing about today's audience is that it comes from everywhere. I mean, my answer here would be, because this model is based on the universal human needs, it's universal. I mean, health is health, and it's health everywhere. And it's everywhere that, for example, we should produce products which do not have parabens and do not have sodium lauryl sulfate and do not have all of those substances which are actually harmful for our body. It's everywhere that we should find in the supermarkets products which are not just full with sugar and whatever other chemical stuff that doesn't support our health. So in my eyes, the model applies everywhere, but that's really where I would love to hear the feedback from this community to say, to see which challenge do you see to apply this one locally in the different groups. What do you see that would not work?
So on that context, I would like to ask all the people who are watching us today. There are more than 100 people watching live right now. I would like to give your suggestion and feedback on, how these things apply to your own regions and your own countries. We would be very glad to take this up with Rosaria. I think it will also help us do research on happiness based approach to different business models, and we would love to take your thoughts and your points to Rosaria, and look forward to collaborating with you as well, because happiness is not only for me, or it's not only for you, it's for everyone. And it also is related to the whole ecosystem that surrounds us. Our happiness depends on the ecosystem, and how do we utilize this ecosystem more efficiently. So in a sense that what human beings think that, we think that we are independent of the ecosystem, but it is not true. We are actually interdependent with the ecosystem.
Totally.
Believe, yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be system thinking and not just silo thinking.
Yeah, on a insider note, I would also like to ask the audience to please mark your attendance, because then only you will get the e-certificate and the Kindle books provided by Rosaria. So moving on to the next question. So this is a question related to the very contemporary issue that we are having. Like, for an example, many institutions are going online due to COVID-19. And what strategic changes would you suggest to these institutions and its employees in order to continue the pursuit of happiness-driven growth, where the well-being of the workers, consumers, people involved should be taken care of?
Yeah, so on this one, I hope also that the example from Tony is, for example, one example that I would bring there. It's really, they have done a number of things to really keep that connection by simply sending a box, and they've done it again as the quarantine went further on. but there are all sorts of things that can be done, again, in those 9 elements. And I think one of the key important one right now is probably more health and autonomy. So autonomy into providing the tools to be able to operate by themselves at home. But health is the most crucial one right now, because what we often don't realize is that now that we all moved online, we are not working anymore. We are not doing all sorts of things for our physical and mental health, which before were part of our routine. So for the company, it's really about how can you make sure that you maintain also for the people that you really stimulate and motivate their health. And I'm thinking one additional thing that I want to bring you guys, we didn't go in that detail in this webinar, but actually I can share with you the links, because what I did when the corona started, I actually started to collect examples of yellow goldfish and yellow factor in times of corona. So if you go online, you will find a specific list which collects all of the examples. So one out of you, WJ COVID Listly, which has all of the possible examples of what companies have been doing in time of COVID to support more their employees or their customers. So you will find in there also a lot of examples. But at high level, it would be make sure that you do things across those 9 elements. And I would say especially on the health, because that one is the key one right now.
That is amazing work, Rosaria. I mean, I really look up to you in terms of your academic work as well. And this is the reason why, you are so updated with happiness, and you're so, I mean, immersed into it that you have been keeping track of everything. And, I think, for someone to learn about happiness, I think, they should probably, take, lessons from Rosaria and take example from Rosaria. And even the question of COVID-19, even before COVID-19 happened, it actually fits to the scenario where you compared the yellow goldfish with the market. You do not have the control over the market.
No.
For an example, the pandemic happened, the COVID-19 pandemic happened, and you don't have control over it. So the genetic makeup of your organization is what actually matters. And, it all the more feels more relevant. So now it's amazing.
And I mean, on that point, it's also like what COVID has done now has woken up people as well. So now people really, when making decisions on the company, they also really look up even more, what is this company really doing for our entire society? How are they impacting climate change? I think with COVID, there has now been a huge awakening, which makes that differential makeup even more important, not only for the company itself, but for the way that people are making their choices.
Yeah, I think that's the vaccine for us. Actually, we should not look for another vaccine, but we should take this formula as the vaccine. So coming to the fourth question, it's about the economic and social scenario. So different countries have different social and economic environments. Do you think this affects the understanding of happiness, and in turn, it also affect how we look into happiness-driven growth per se?
Again, this is a very, very, very big question. I would love to reflect more on. The one thing that I've seen is that all the countries is lower, but they are all catching up. I mean, for me, I always looked up to Bhutan, because Bhutan has been one of the first country to really say it's not about GDP. And, from the moment already like 10 years ago when I first started, I was like, I want to go to Bhutan. And that's why then I made it like actually a life goal. Like I want to go to Bhutan and really see this country where they really believe in it. And they've set the example, and slowly, little by little, I see other countries are following up. And now with the worldwide yearly report on the happiness, you see that ultimately the elements are the same. It's then how people, at the end also happiness is about perception. So it will always be different. And that is why when thinking also of measurement, I always think, it's so complex to measure happiness. In Bhutan, the GNH is really, really a complex also system that tries to look at everything. And so all the other elements, SDG, I see there are so many different metrics. And I've been also starting to look at, can we not just keep it simple, at least within the organization? What if we would measure what I call the happiness contribution factor? Because we cannot fully, like I cannot make you be happy an 8 or a 10, or your 8 may be different from my 8. But what I can always do, I can give you my 0.5 or 1 point or 2 points of happiness. And that is the contribution that I can do. So, and that contribution can be measurable. So, but I think there has to be a lot of work on this still to be done, because I haven't seen yet a measure. And I mean, there are so many also academics and scientists trying to come up with that measure, which can really be working across all the different countries. For now, we just have to compare it.
I think it's all about the little efforts that we can put in. You know, even little efforts makes a big difference. For example, if you remember the poem, "Little drops of water, little grains of sand, you know, make a mighty ocean and pleasant land." So, you know,
that's in English. You know, it's like I know this sentence. Like in Italian is "il poco aggiunto al poco, benché al poco a poco un cumulo farà che non è poco." And I'm like, it's moms. I'm like, I need to find how can I translate it in English, but you have the English version of it. Brilliant. I need to have
it. I'll send it to you later on.
Cool. No, so but exactly, it is about the drops. Yeah.
Yeah. The last question actually relates to the measurement indicator. So this question has a caveat. So, do you feel happiness is a better measure for a nation's progress than GDP?
Yeah, so again, it's like, it's the big question. I mean, I think we all agree that GDP is no longer enough. I mean, I would say, like I love on there the quote from Stiglitz is, we manage what we measure, and we need to measure the right things. And we are just, with GDP, we are just not measuring the right things, because I mean, strategy is about reaching a goal. And it's like you want to measure what you are aiming for. And we are not just aiming for GDP. I mean, GDP has just proven that it's not giving us a better life. So surely it's not enough. And again, it's not or. I think really, instead of living in the tyranny of or this or that, why can we not do and? Why can we not measure GDP and GNH and happiness contribution factor? Like really find what are the few elements that we need to monitor and put them together. That would be my answer. And
so there's a catch. Now when we say yes, you know, for many people, happiness means good economic conditions, especially for the people living in the third world countries where there is a dearth of resources and facilities that actually create happiness. So do you feel happiness can be achieved without economic prosperity? Isn't in that case, isn't happiness a sort of luxury for these underprivileged people?
Yeah, again, a big question. It's, I mean, yeah, it's also, I think it's also where you are, you know, because I mean, at the end, if you are in the Netherlands and you live in the society, you need to have the bare minimum to be able to afford your apartment and the social security and the healthcare. If you live in the forest and you can build and you can still get the fish, then you could still have it without everything else. So also there it's end. I mean, it's like what I believe is that for sure money is not just happiness, but eventually in today's society, if you have absolutely no money, I mean, again, I think also with COVID has been a really smash in the face for a lot of people, for us all. It's like if you have no job and you have no money to bring home every month and you cannot go out and work, you cannot buy food in today's society. Otherwise, we have to go back and start fishing fishes from the water again. So it also comes with the progress that we have made that, we need the money. But like, and there I quote another quote that I really love, that's from Peter Drucker. It's like money for companies, but also for people, is just like oxygen for our life. I mean, we need oxygen to live. We need money to live. Companies need profit to survive. But if we think the life is just about breathing, or that a company can only be about profit, then we are really missing out on something. We need both.
Yeah. So now coming to the fun questions, we have taken, certain questions from the registrants who have registered, who have taken the time and they have taken the effort to create, kind of fun questions for you. So this is a question by Simon Castillo Salvador from Philippines, and thank you, Simon, for this question, because even I would like to know the answer for this from Rosaria. So, yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah. So it's a fun question, Rosaria. Like in one line, just in one line, what is the definition of happiness for you? Like one line, no more than one line.
Happiness is play, harmony, joyfulness. I would say, I would say this one. If I have to pick like 4 words right now, but living life to the fullest.
Okay. So Simon, I hope you follow Rosaria's definition of happiness here, that it's living life to the fullest. Now we come to the aspect of the third world, and second question is from Yashita Gupta, and she's from the United Kingdom, and she's asking you, why and how are Scandinavian countries doing better in terms of happiness-driven growth? They are always on the top of happiness index.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like so the short answer, it's a combination. I mean, there it's because the sense of safety in the country, you feel safe, the health, security, all of the elements that you have, so that gives a basis of security, which brings you up. And then the Scandinavia, it's on relationship, one big element, and the other one, it's they call the hygge factor, which is about the way that you guys are able to enjoy life, like the simple thing, like of putting on a candle or just enjoying that moment. Like it's really about enjoying life. What we see from the Scandinavian, that they have that capability of just being in the moment. And I've been in Sweden, in the very north of Sweden. I think Sweden, it's all about nature. I mean, it's like you guys, you still have a big element of back to the core. Like you have so much nature that it's so easy to be in harmony with nature, to be outside, so you eat well. So there are so many elements. I think you do all the 9 elements of the happiness flower, I would say.
Okay, so the third question is from India, from Anil Kumar. So he is asking you, according to you, what is the role of the government in maintaining and promoting happiness within organization?
Yeah, it's for me. So like I believe that people cannot do it on their own. They need companies also have a responsibility. But I so much also believe that the government, absolutely, with all the policies that they put in place, that is critical, and it's accepted. Sorry, in the meantime, I'm getting a call. It's really fundamental that they do the things through their policy, because they regulate our life. Even something as simple as creating the space for community in a certain neighbor, playgrounds. There are just so many ways. And you see there, one of the most advanced country is the UAE, where really they've been the first one to nominate the Minister of Happiness and to really work on focusing on happiness. So absolutely fundamental.
The beauty about Reimagining Society is that you will get questions from all the parts of the world, and we have one more question from Nepal. So Mohit from Nepal, he's saying that this VUCA world has made it difficult to maintain the happiness among employees and consumers. So by VUCA, there's a concept of VUCA which means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So what, according to you, is the solution for the same? Is it emotional resilience or something else in terms of the solution?
It is. I mean, yeah. because it's like, yes, we can all embrace uncertainty. I mean, look at now with COVID, absolutely there is uncertainty. So what we need to work most on is indeed the emotional resilience. And it's about, so the one work that I'm also doing a lot with myself, it's embracing what we call a feminine leadership, which is about really moving like feminine, not in terms of female, but more in terms of the quality of the feminine. So while the male leadership is much more focused on structure and processes and schemas, the feminine leadership is more indeed about the emotional element and really accepting uncertainty and coping with uncertainty. I mean, it's like now with COVID, yeah, we don't know, but then what can we do? I mean, for me, for example, okay, I just need to move everything online. That is my possible way to cope with uncertainty. And I need to make sure that I take care of my emotional well-being. And it's only that resilience and that emotional well-being that then allows you to also cope with uncertainty. Because then instead of going into sadness or whatever issue, then you can say, okay, it is what it is. And I think that that's the one thing also for me that I embrace as of March is like the poem of the Chinese farmer, where he says, it is what it is. No matter whether he wins an horse, he loses the horse, his son breaks his leg, at every single thing, when people come to him and they say, oh, good fortune, bad fortune, good fortune, all he replies is, it is what it is. The outside is what it is. What we can always work on is us, our seed, our genetic makeup, the light that we bring into the world. How do we decide to show up in the world?
Okay, so since we are running out of time, we will ask one last question from the live feed. We also have live questions just coming in, but I would not trouble you much more. I'll just ask one question, and that is from Bhutan. The question is from Chepel Pema Doji. So Chepel Pema Doji is asking you that, could you please share your opinion about gross national happiness? Do you think it is a good philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it's again, I was absolutely fascinated from the GNH, and I want to know more about it. It's definitely a good philosophy. It's the one thing that I add more into the organization is it can be though complicated. It can be, there are so many different criteria. So it's more about how do we make it pragmatic so that also companies can embrace it. But there are also, there's an institution in Switzerland that is really working on creating the GNH, the corporate GNH, in a simple way. But absolutely, so I look up to Bhutan, I look up to the concept of GNH as absolutely, one of the way forward. We need more of that.
Well, thank you so much for such comprehensive presentation and answers, Rosaria. Now I will call upon my co-moderator, Chisato Cario, to kindly please conclude the presentation and the webinar, and have a concluding remarks for.
Can I also have 1 more minute to give you one final to leave the audience with final question, if this is the final moment?
Yeah, sure, Rosaria.
So I just want to bring you one quick thing, like 2 final questions. So the first question is in which world, I would like to leave you with a question, in which world would you rather live in? So really reflecting on what is the world that you want to contribute to, and remembering the following, which is that even when companies choose different ways to differentiate yourself, at the end, every company can always have a yellow factor by doing their little extra that seed happiness, shines the sunlight, and contribute to a happier, healthier world. And therefore, the question also for all of you is, what will be your yellow factor? And that was the conclusion for me. And the reminder, will you do the reminder of the books that can be downloaded?
Yeah, I think you can say it, Rosaria, like how they can download it.
Great. Then thank you from me for having this opportunity to speak to so many of you. For me, again, I really, really love it, and I would love to hear your questions. So if you have any feedback, please send it. And my thank you to you is that you can download for free today the book behind everything that you saw today, Yellow Factor, Happiness in Business, and another artistic book that I wrote, which is Words of Wisdom, Nurturing Our World. you see here the link, so you can either go directly on your Amazon shop and Kindle and search for those book titles, or you can put in this link with this number, and then you just replace .com or .nl with the country where you have your Kindle from. And please, if you have any questions, reach out. I would love to hear it. And if you read the books, I would love to have your reviews also on Amazon. So that would be my request. Help me spread the word and the message, and your reviews will help. And I would love your feedback. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, I asked Chisato Carrillo to have the concluding remarks, please. Thank you. Chisato, please go on.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. It's all those like engaging questions. I was really interested in hearing all those, questions and also your presentations. And then just one quick final notes from me, what I thought. I've been interested in ESG investments. And then under this COVID situation, companies are starting to focus more on social part, like S part, and which is more, well-being and interests of people and communities, workplace health and safety, and employee relations, and more. So a lot of companies are starting to focus more on the health of the employees and customers as well. So I think, hearing your presentation made me also think that companies actively incorporating this happiness-driven growth will also lead to better reputations, attracting more investors, and achieving long-term sustainable growth. So I think it's going to be a great spiral. And I think your research really thought, this is what I study at, pretty much Columbia University right now. I really thought your research really brings positive vibes to not only the companies, but also the people, NGOs, NPOs, and public sectors. So it was a really insightful presentation, and thank you so much. And then thank you very much, Ms. Rosaria, and all the engaging participants and the team for staying here Sunday to make this webinar a great time. So I really hope everyone all over the world are going to spend a great weekend. And the one quick reminder, please, and participants to get this great book, please remember to mark your attendance. And also, as Rosaria said, feel free to reach out to her for any questions. I think she's really active and involved into any of your questions and comments as well. So yes, that is, all from my end. And I think this will be the end of the webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, for engaging in great time.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah.